Mm. Lovely. Okay, we are ready to go. So, welcome everyone to the first in our series of Josh and Eliza answer questions you've always wanted to ask, but maybe been afraid to, about accent learning and the accent that you want to take on of English specifically. So we'll start off by introducing ourselves and telling you a little bit about ourselves. And then we'll jump right into the questions. So if you have thoughts as we're speaking, questions you want answered, pop them right into the chat. We'll do our best to kind of respond to them in the moment, but we'll definitely try to answer everything by the end of our live today. And if we don't, we will be back next Friday for the next 3 weeks. We're going to be here on Fridays at 12:45 Eastern to answer your questions. So let's get going. We're going to introduce ourselves. Would you like to?
Sure. Thanks, Eliza. So I'm Josh. Full name, just for fun, Joshua Feliciano Sanchez Moser. You can call me Josh. I'm one of the newer coaches for BoldVoice. I'm a professional voice and dialect coach, teacher, and actor. So currently I teach at Brown University in the university's MFA program for actors and directors. I'm an intern faculty member here. And I'm also a resident artist in New York with Phoenix Theater Ensemble. And I've worked with performers and corporate professionals and individuals from all over the world to develop their speaking skills. And my own accent is shaped by a few things. So the sounds present in my family my father's from Puerto Rico, and my mother her family is European mix, right? So Italian and Spanish primarily, and some Pennsylvania Dutch, Irish German. And my stepfather's family was from upstate New York. And so I had all of these sounds in my life growing up. And then of course I trained as an actor and went through formal speech training. And so my own accent today is kind of an amalgamation of all of those experiences.
Hello, I'm Eliza Simpson. I'm also a BoldVoice coach and content creator. We're all sort of content creators and curriculum shapers. And a little bit about me, I am a professional accent and speech coach based predominantly in Brooklyn, New York, but I get to work with professionals all over the globe to help them craft clear, confident accents when they speak English. So my clients are actors in Hollywood films, they're spokesmodels, they're corporate professionals. See if I'm leaving anything out. Performers for voiceover and stage and television, and anybody who needs to use communication as a tool is a prime person for accent coaching. And I suppose my own accent is shaped predominantly by growing up in the United States on the East Coast, but also having trained as a performer, as an actor at an East Coast university. So it's all part of the mix. We are all, the way that we speak is an amalgamation of the places we've been, the people that we've been in contact with, and I think most importantly, the decisions that we've made, whether they're conscious or subconscious, about how we want to present ourselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the questions we're here to kind of address today, the first one is, I think one that comes up a lot, which is this idea of like how often should I be practicing? How should I be practicing if I want to achieve my accent goals? So Josh, what's your feeling on this?
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot by like all of my clients and my students. And so the answer is, I think, for a little bit every day. And when I say a little bit every day, you know, like one of my favorite things to recommend, most people spend some time in the bathroom in the morning, like combing hair, brushing teeth. So like in those bathroom moments in the morning, you're in front of a mirror, you're working on maybe a specific sound and watching the muscle shape. And just that like 5 minutes while you're brushing your teeth, working the sound or working a muscle is enough to keep the skills sharp in your body. So I think a little bit every day is a good way to go so that you don't overwhelm yourself. Cramming accent doesn't work, right? You can't kind of like spend 3 hours once a month trying to cram it in there because it's not going to stick, right?
Yeah, agreed. I think the
Yeah.
bathroom's a great spot.
Oh, good. So good. I'm glad I'm not alone in that recommendation. Yeah.
It's perfect. It's perfect. It has all the things you need, right? It's
Right.
usually somewhat private.
Mhm.
It has a mirror. You're already thinking about your face/mouth.
Mhm.
So yeah, I agree. That's the spot.
Yeah, and the acoustics are fabulous. It's like
Oh.
the best acoustics in my house,
That's right. That's why we all sing in the shower. That's why.
Exactly.
Uh, and just to kind of bring us into the next question, because we can talk about best practices
Yeah.
for practicing, but one of the follow-up questions that we have to discuss today is this idea of how to get the progress that you find in your practice into your conversation, because it can feel like when you're working on your own that you've nailed something, that you've really achieved something and you're super confident in it, and then the minute you take it out of that context and put it in a social context, it disappears. What is that about, Josh?
That's a great question, Eliza. And I think this is interesting because it's, to my mind, more about the social component and putting something in front of other people's ears and eyes, because the same thing happens to me. Like I'll be working on a speech or I'll be working on a lesson plan, or I will have prepped something and it will be so good and so right and amazing in my bathroom in the morning, right? And then I'll get in front of the people, and moments that were smooth and thoughts that were so clear take me time to find. And I'll notice that I have to repeat a word or I'll stumble a little bit. And so when a client comes to me with this kind of question, the first thing I get them to try to observe actually is how their breath feels different when they're working on their own versus when they're working in front of people. Do they start to hold their breath? Do they get nervous or anxious in front of people? Do they make themselves like narrow? Because that's just going to to my mind, that's just going to make the lack of confidence around the speech more increased, right? So I think, and you might have other exercises for this or other recommendations for this, but one of the things I think is most effective is actually a breath practice and a grounding practice so that you can stay present in your body so that you don't start to disassociate.
That's a really good piece of advice. The thinking of speech and breath as separate, I think, is one of the great sort of fallacies, right?
Yeah, right.
That they're just completely intertwined. Yeah. And then with that, yeah, I think the idea that speech is a social activity
Right. Yeah.
is really useful. And so when I have a trick. I'm sure my
Oh,
hack.
share your trick. I love learning a new trick. Please tell.
I find that a breath practice is essential. That I need to sort of, before I begin taking what I've practiced on my own into a context with another human, I need to enact my breath before I even get close to them, right, in proximity. So I start kind of settling in before, even when I start thinking about having the interaction, I start breathing. And then what I need to do is I need to give myself something on my own body to be in contact with.
I do too. I wear this ring because it moves. And so I will, if you can't see my hands because of the Zoom, which is one of the beauties of the screen, I can hide this, but in person, I will often do something like this with this ring, like
I love that.
in just inside of my hand. So it's not super obvious or distracting to the other person, but it keeps me focused in the room and not locked in my brain. I love your trick. I love your trick.
Stellar. Yes. These tricks and hacks, I think, are strategies. You know, we name them tricks, but
yeah,
anything that works, right?
Exactly.
I love this. I do something similar. I do it inside my shoes. I find that my toes are,
Mhm.
everybody's got a different area, right?
Everybody has a different thing, right? But that's great because again, it's not distracting to the other person or the people in the room. It's something that only you know is happening, really. And it keeps you like in your body and focused on the people that you're communicating with.
Such a good point, that focusing on your body, your physical body, is actually the way to be more present with the other person. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pretend that I'm having a conversation with you.
Okay.
And let's say I've practiced really, really hard. Let's say for some reason I'm gonna order a coffee from you,
Okay.
Josh. And I've practiced my coffee order, and I've been in the bathroom kind of looking at my own face and memorizing that I would like an oat milk cappuccino because I'm bougie. And and as I practice alone in the bathroom, I'm gonna make sure that I have all the sounds, that I've got relaxation through the muscles that aren't necessary, so I don't have unnecessary tension. And as I practice up here, I'm also going to practice wiggling my toes inside my shoes. So then I walk up to the counter, I have a breath even before I think about opening my mouth, and I say, "Hi,
Hey there.
can I please have and you guys can't see this, but my toes are going crazy, oat milk cappuccino."
An oat milk cappuccino? Fabulous. Would you like anything else?
Right. And then my brain explodes because that's as much as I've practiced. I'm like,
Right.
ah!
Right.
What would you recommend me to do in that moment after I've successfully completed my task?
Yeah. So I love this hypothetical. And this is I worked at Starbucks as an undergrad, so waiting on a coffee counter.
Yeah.
I was a shift supervisor, so I was.
Oh my God. So you have like real world. You brought
real
character. You brought like
I did.
backstory.
I did. There was a whole backstory there.
Amazing. I could feel it. I could feel it.
Good. So that moment of surprise actually is right, the one you didn't practice for, and that's the one that typically makes people go, "Oh, I'm not ready. I didn't prepare for this." And so that moment of, "Oh no," tends to actually make you like deflect the other person's question a little bit. So you didn't take it in fully. So you can't process your answer because you got stuck in the, "Oh no, that's as much as I practiced." So if you can, in that moment, really just keep your toes going, right? If your toes are your thing, or if the ring is your thing, right? Keep the physical activity moving and keep consciously breathing, right? So if this were the other way, right? Or if we were to repeat this again, you ask me for your coffee and I say, "Great, okay, an oat milk latte, fabulous. Will there be anything else?" While I'm speaking, you're consciously breathing and you're keeping your activity going so that you can think about it like as my words, like floating across space to you, and you're consciously breathing them in so that you can digest them, right? Because if you freeze in that moment, my words are going to stop here and they're going to fall on the floor.
Okay.
Right? So you want to think about breathing them into yourself and digesting them. And that way, then, even if you need an extra moment after I've asked my question, right? You're still processing. You can still breathe, and that breath and that activity is going to help you process your answer, right? And if you need to fill space, Yeah, that'll be all for today, right? You can actually use just an or a huh to fill a little bit of space until you've actually got the answer, right? That's socially acceptable in this kind of scenario, right?
Yeah, yes. Oh, that's such a good direction. Even as in this kind of created exchange, I felt myself locking up. I felt myself getting very narrow.
Yeah.
So whew, thank you. Yes, such a good point, this using sound.
Mhm.
Well, we are not going to overload you with too many hyper useful tidbits in one day, but we did just get a question. So we're going to round out our kind of live today by responding to the question that was in the live, which I've just popped into our chat as well. And the question is, what would you recommend for new students who just started learning a new language? And does BoldVoice help beginners? That's a great question.
It's a fabulous question. You want me to go first?
Go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. So, does BoldVoice help beginners? Yeah, I think BoldVoice as a tool is really fabulous for all levels of English language learners. But I think one of the useful things for beginners is that it focuses on small, digestible chunks of information, right? So you're not overloaded by trying to learn a new sound, but also the grammar around it, right? It's really digestible information, and it's structured in a way so that you kind of layer from most digestible or perhaps easier words and phrases to more complex, and right, so there's a natural leveling up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you learn like early on in your language process, these accent skills, it's not quite as overwhelming when you step up to the coffee counter and try to take what's been learned in isolation into a scenario. It's a smoother transition.
Yeah. And I think my biggest recommendation is a little bit of contact every day, right? Even if it's just like practicing, what is the cost of this water bottle? Or I really enjoy this brand of water. Like, and you practice it in your first language, and then you practice that phrase or word even in your new language, right? Your target language, your target accent. 5 minutes every day is like does wonders.
It's a doable thing, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's achievable.
That's what we're here for. The practical, the achievable, those small daily victories. So keep practicing, keep achieving. Share your small daily victories with us here on this Facebook page.
Yes, please.
And we will be back next Friday for more questions you've always wanted to ask, but maybe been afraid to. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great week.
Take care. Bye.